We're back!
Yes, we are. Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the Amish Furniture podcast.
If you're tuning in for the first time, we are your hosts. I'm Milca Rivera, and I've worked for DutchCrafters Amish Furniture, the largest online retailer of Amish furniture, for 4 years.
And I'm Beth Rice, and I've worked for the Sarasota-based small business founded in 2003 for 5 years.
On this limited series podcast, we'll be sharing the expertise we've gained as members of DutchCrafters' content communications and marketing team by answering some of the most frequently asked questions we receive about Amish furniture and working with the Amish.
Yes, and while we do work for DutchCrafters, our goal is to educate, entertain, and help no matter where you choose to shop or what your level of interest is in Amish furniture.
In today's episode, Beth, some of our colleagues, and me will be sharing stories from visits to Amish wood shops.
And in case this is the first time you're joining us, I'd love to just take a moment to give a tiny bit of background on how it is that we visit wood shops up in Amish country. DutchCrafters is located here in Florida. We're located here because the CEO and his wife live here in Florida, but all of the Amish furniture we offer online is authentically handcrafted up in Amish country in beautiful Pennsylvania, Indiana, and Ohio. And it's important to our boss that we all learn about the furniture, how it's made, the details that go into it. So he sends us on trips up to Amish country, and we get to visit woodshop after woodshop to see what goes into making Amish furniture. In turn, the woodworkers come down here to Florida often on their vacations to the community in Sarasota called Pinecraft. So they come down here and visit our showroom and tell us details about the furniture and all the latest features and gather any questions that we have.
Some of the stories were pre-recorded, but we hope that they offer a glimpse into our experiences working with Amish wood shops. So let's get started.
First up to share their story is Jake. Jake has worked for DutchCrafters for 4 years as our multimedia producer and graphic designer, and he also produces this podcast.
So my story begins on my first day of work at DutchCrafters. I was living in Indiana. I had been hired by DutchCrafters to be a photographer and videographer for them. And then I was invited to join their team for a tour of wood shops in Indiana on my first day. So the day began around 4:30 a.m. when I met our team at the hotel, and the Amish woodworkers start work very early in the morning. So when we're visiting them, we start work early too. We met at about 4:30 a.m. at the hotel, did our introductions, and then drove out in the countryside in a van to the address for this shop, which we had gotten from them on the phone. We got to the farm where the address had taken us, the GPS had taken us, and it was completely dark. There were no lights on in the house, there were no lights on in the shed, so we thought, this must not be the right place. Normally in a situation like that, you just call their cell phone and ask what went wrong, ask how to find them. But with the Amish, there's no easy communication like that. So eventually we got back on the road, went back the way we came, and found the shop. We'd driven right past it and not even seen the sign by the road. But we arrived, we came in and were welcomed warmly and even provided us breakfast right there. So we got to start the day off with hot coffee, fresh fruit, baked goods, and had a little breakfast together at their shop. And then we went on to tour the shop and I think 4 more shops that day. And we got that kind of warm greeting repeated wherever we went. So that was a great introduction to the challenges and the benefits of working with Amish woodworkers.
I can imagine Jake's first day, that early morning start. It's a jolt. But I love hearing him talk about it. And it's so true of the Amish. You know, they are so dedicated to their work. They are up and at it very early. We actually have a blog, and this was a blog that we put together from team members who went on Amish trips. And the quote from Jake is, the men and women I met were all friendly, welcoming, and genuine. It never felt as if they had anything important to hurry off to besides being hospitable to those of us visiting. And you can really hear that in the story that he tells, taking the time to have some foods together, some breakfast together, even though they're ready to, get to work, and many of them are already at work. I like that he connected with that.
Thank you for sharing that story with us, Jake. And what an introduction to the company, your very first day of work, being asked to join us in Indiana. It was really a test to see if you were actually as good as you claim to be. All right, so we're moving on to the next story. The next one is from Steve. Steve started working with the company almost 3 years ago as a furniture specialist, and he's moved into becoming a product manager. He moved into that role a little over a year ago. And as a product manager, it's really important to build strong relationships with our wood shops for the business and for our customers. And these visits give our product managers the opportunity to do just that.
So I remember on our second morning in Indiana, we were getting ready. And of course, you have to get up before the sun rises. And it was probably about 4:30 when we were getting up. But we got to our first shop, and it was still dark, of course. And that was Jerry and Rosetta's wood shop. They gave us an incredible tour of the wood shop. We got to actually watch a lot of the people there making the furniture, sanding, cutting. It was really quite interesting. And as we finished up with the tour, they invited us over to their home. And of course, we walked across the property a little bit, and it was still dark. As we go in the door, they had some furniture set up that they were showing us, but then to the right was their kitchen. So they invited us in there. I thought we were just going to sit and talk for a while, but they had a table set up entirely filled with food, with breakfast for us. So that was really unexpected. And then I remember that we sat down and there was so much food. We started eating, and Rosetta would keep bringing more food. She had hamburgers for breakfast. She had sausage, eggs, bacon. They had biscuits. They had bread with, I remember that Carrie Joe and Stacy, who were with us, they really, really liked the hot pepper jam. And so much so that the next day they went out and they bought some that they had found at some store local up there. But they had some hot pepper jam that they really liked. They also Rosetta had made fresh grapefruit juice. And I remember everybody was just raving about that, the fresh grapefruit juice. But while we were having breakfast there, I remember that some young children were getting ready for school, and it was interesting to have them come in and meet us and talk to us. And they were getting their backpacks and getting things all ready, getting their shoes on, getting ready to walk down to the school yard. And while doing that, I remember looking up and I saw that the sun was rising as we were eating, and we could see the sun from outside. It was coming over their property. You could see that rising, and it was a beautiful sight. That was one of my fondest memories of that visit there, along with the hospitality and the great food.
That's great. That's a great story from Steve. And the theme of getting up early is there, just like it was with Jake's. It's funny because from my teenage daughter, I hear from her often when she does get up early. She says, "Mom, I'm tired, but I'm glad that I got up early because I can get more done with my day." And the Amish are certainly looking to get as much in to their day, whether it's work or time with family. I know that I loved the food on my trip to Amish country. Mm-hmm. Whenever the woodworkers come here to chat with us in the showroom, they always bring treats, whether it's sweet treats or homemade cookies or something like that. I cannot remember. There was one woodworker, they made these big cookies. I can't remember the name, not birthday cake cookies. Do you remember
Oh, I don't know if it's the birthday cake ones, but ones that couple always brings with them. Their daughter bakes them, and we have been trying to get the recipe forever, and it's a secret. They won't give it to us. They're like ginger molasses cookies or molasses. Oh my gosh, they're so good. The show that I went to, so it was a vendor show. So I got to meet a bunch of the woodworkers who are based out of Indiana. They were all at this like convention center. And I remember when we got close to that booth where the couple that their daughter makes those cookies, I was there on the trip with two of our product managers, Mary and Ross. And as soon as we were getting close to them, they just like ran over to that booth and were like, "Oh, the cookies, like the ginger molasses cookies." But yeah, and I hear every time they bring them, people just rave about them. And they have said several times that several people have said that they've asked for the recipe and they just won't give it to them, which I guess is okay. But yeah, they're like as big as your face, these cookies.
As every good cookie should be. I do want to mention too, when Steve describes that view in the morning, that's something else that's just so nice to see in Amish country. Amish country is just beautiful. And a lot of people, I believe, like to go there to unwind and just to be in that setting where the pace is slower and you feel more relaxed. And it's something that you can kind of see in our furniture too. Amish furniture and the way it's handcrafted and having it sitting in your home, knowing it's going to last not just a few years, but for generations to come. It just connects you to that time, that simpler time where more effort was put into making things and producing something of value. And when Steve talks about, that view that he saw looking out that window, it just takes you to that time.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that he mentioned that in the story too, because how many of us, take time out in the day or are up early enough and not automatically just plugging into our electronics to really get out and enjoy the sunset. Our CEO, Jim, one time when I was interviewing him for a story, mentioned that, they had been having dinner with an Amish family one time. And after dinner, they all went out onto the porch and had ice cream and just like watched the sunset and, got to see the stars. And it's those types of moments that we don't really take time to do for the most part. So it is great to get to enjoy those moments on trips. But so, Steve talked about this meal that he had, and going back to the trip to Indiana that I got to go where those delicious cookies were. I got the opportunity to meet a bunch of our vendors, but there's one in particular that I really connected with, and it was a husband and wife team. The husband wasn't there during that trip, but his wife is really kind of the one that runs the wood shop. And that's, a little bit, you don't hear that as often, that the matriarch of the family is the one who runs the wood shop. But she was there with her son and his wife and their new grandbaby, who was just so cute. And we got to sit down with them. As soon as we went over to talk to them, they had us sit down there. They make dining tables, and they had us sit down at one of the dining tables. And, we just ended up having like a 30-minute conversation during this show with them where, they're essentially supposed to be trying to get business. And yet they took the time to sit there and talk to us. And Wilma, who is the owner of the wood shop, said, "Hey, I'm going to be down in Sarasota in Pinecraft where they have a house in a couple of weeks, and I'd love to take you out to dinner." And sure enough, about 2 weeks later, we got a call from her, and Mary and I went and had dinner with her at one of the Amish restaurants here in town, Der Dutchman. And we ended up having like a 2-hour conversation over dinner. And I mean, they were just such a lovely couple. They were just really humorous. The food was delicious. Afterwards, we got to go to their house in Pinecraft, and we just created a connection. So whenever she's been able to come and visit us here or in Sarasota, it's been just great to catch up with her. And, she always makes it a point to like give me a little hug whenever I see her. So it was really great to create that connection.
So lovely. I've noticed when the woodworkers, their family members, when they do come to visit us, I'm always impressed by how they remember the names of our staff. They put in such an effort to, just as we are, to really make that connection, that we're kind of all this big extended family in a way.
All right, so now for a quick break and some reminders before we hear a few more stories. Here on the Amish Furniture podcast, you'll hear stories like these from Amish country, as well as tips and tricks and advice about Amish furniture.
So subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. And if you have questions about Amish furniture, today's topic, Have a story about a visit to Amish country, or would like to share your idea for future episode topics? We would love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@DutchCrafters.com. Now back to the episode. The next story is from Carrie Joe. Carrie Joe has worked for DutchCrafters for about 7 years. She started as an executive assistant before becoming our shipping coordinator, then assistant sales manager, and was recently promoted to showroom and fulfillment manager. Here's Carrie Joe.
Fall is one of the most beautiful times of the year to visit Indiana. The leaves are changing colors, the air is crisp, and the sun is shining. Horse and buggies line the road, and the smell of freshly baked pastries fills the air. Last year, that was the Indiana that welcomed our group from DutchCrafters, which included the company's owners and several members of the sales team. On one of our many woodshop visits during the trip, we visited Aura, one of the most dedicated and knowledgeable woodworkers I have ever met. Aura's woodshop is like many of our builders. It is in his barn, next door to his home, and the landscape is covered with small farms with horses and cows and large crops of corn and soybeans. My emotions are always a mix of eagerness and excitement when I visit a shop for the first time and meet a builder that I have known for years but have never met in person. When you walk into Aura's shop, the first thing you notice are 2 huge black buggies with large spindle wheels, a sharp contrast to the vibrant rainbow of bird feeders that cover every available surface. Within minutes of speaking with Aura, a soft-spoken man with a great laugh, his passion for birds and bird feeders is evident. He quickly dashed around the space, picking up one bird feeder after another, lovingly explaining the details of each piece. Aura explained that one bird feeder is a particular color to attract the bird, and the design of the feeder helps the bird to feel safe because he likes to have his back protected while he eats. Another bird feeder allows the bird to eat in an open space and provides ample room to move, which is more conducive to that bird's eating style. Aura's expertise in ornithology was quickly apparent, and the group hung on to every word as he painted a vivid picture of North American bird behaviors. Soon the conversation turned to the buggies, where we each got a turn to look in and marvel at the craftsmanship and ask questions about life without cars. Aura explained how he uses a horse and buggy to deliver his completed bird feeders to the local post office and to travel to the library to continue his research on birds. To date, this has been my most memorable woodshop visit and one of my favorite trips to Indiana. My biggest takeaway from this woodshop was that, of course, Aura builds bird feeders for our customers, but deep down, he really builds bird feeders for the birds.
I love that, that he's building the bird feeders for the birds. You know, that's just something to draw attention to again, that we see and we can hear in Carrie Joe's story. There's such purpose to these visits to the wood shops, where we can observe the woodworkers really just displaying the expertise in their craft. And this is what we're talking about with Amish Furniture. Wherever you're shopping for it, it's made with such devotion. You know, when Carrie Joe speaks about that bird feeder and the one type that the bird's back is protected while he's eating, you know, it's just these little details, you know, that go into the furniture, into the bird feeders to deliver the right product to the customer.
Yeah, I love the picture that she paints with her story. Like, I'm envisioning Aura getting, just filling up the back of his buggy with packages for the post office, and then just also then envisioning him going to the library and just eating up these books, on birds so that he can better understand the birds and what's going to attract them to those feeders so that customers can essentially be happy with their purchase because it's attracting, birds to the feeder. So I just really love that story a lot.
I did get to go on the trip that I went on with her to Ohio. She spoke about Indiana here, but we went to Ohio and we were at a Milcraft wood shop. They make some stunning bedroom furniture. And I remember that we observed the making of a drawer, and we were watching them make dovetail joints. And I think we talked briefly about dovetail joints in our last podcast, but they're the type of joinery that just isn't going to come apart. It's put together for that drawer to be used over and over and over for decades. And Carrie Joe and I were watching them make the drawer, and then when they had completed one, they let us stand on it, and we took a picture just kicking our legs high in the air on top of this drawer in the Amish wood shop.
That's probably one of our favorite things to do, is to show customers when they come to the store how sturdy the furniture is, because of just by how sturdy those drawer boxes are, and that you are able to stand on them. And a lot of customers don't, believe us. We'll say, you can stand on it. And they just kind of look at us like, no, I'm not even going to try it. But there's always that person that, is willing to do it. And it just shows the quality of the work. So
we were at the shop for Berlin Gardens. When we went to Ohio, we visited Wayne, Millersburg, and Berlin. And the day that we went to the Berlin Gardens shop, we started early before the sun was up.
Surprise! What a shocker!
But on to our Berlin Gardens experience. Berlin Gardens makes that exceptional poly outdoor furniture. Poly is made with recycled plastic. So when we got to the Berlin Gardens shop, we saw all the different, Adirondack chairs, porch swings, these exceptional pub table sets. They even had some new chairs that they were putting out that were a more contemporary design, with, kind of a very minimalistic look. And we got to sit in those and check them out. We were able to see some of the women who worked on the cushions for the poly furniture. We walked through this large room that was just full from floor to ceiling with stuffing. And Milca, when I tell you that it was very hard to resist, just taking a full speed run towards that stuffing and just throwing yourself into it, when I tell you that it was difficult to resist doing that and maintain your composure in front of the Amish woodworkers, it was difficult. I'm not lying.
I believe you. I feel that I would not have been able to restrain myself.
It was like pretend snow, even though there was real snow outside because it was January when we visited. But we made our way through that room without embarrassing ourselves. And we got to see this machine where they were going to shoot the stuffing into the cushion. And one of the Amish woodworkers, this sweet lady, she said to Carrie Joe, would you like to catch a cushion? And of course, Carrie Joe is always gung-ho and up for anything. And she was like, absolutely, I'd love to catch the cushion. No problem. So she showed her where to stand. And here, I'm thinking, I don't know why I was thinking this, because this sweet little Amish lady was catching cushions. That's what she does. And here I'm thinking this thing is going to come shooting out of there and, knock Carrie Joe over like a bowling pin. I don't know why I was thinking that, but she showed Carrie Joe where to stand, and the stuffing shot out of there and filled up the cushion. And it was fun to watch. I stood way back, but it was fun to watch.
That sounds like fun to watch.
Absolutely. And I will say there are some photos of that on one of our blogs. I'm just going to take a little side here to mention our blog for people who, really love to immerse themselves in Amish culture and of course, have an interest in Amish furniture. Our blog is called Timber to Table. I love that title.
It's a great title.
It's a really good title. And the name of this particular blog is called Woodworking and Whoopie Pies.
Oh, good title. Who came up with that?
I will say I came up with that title. And it has a picture of Carrie Joe getting ready to catch the cushion. So, our blog is a great source for not only these scenes from Amish country, but also for some fundamentals about Amish furniture, answering questions you might have about Amish furniture, right down to, what's the purpose of different table edges and things like that. It's real specifics. It's also a spot where we have guest blogs. Eric Wessner is the founder of AmishAmerica.com, and we have several guest blogs from Eric on Timber to Table if you'd like to check them out. His site is just a wealth of information about the Amish.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. Our last woodshop visit story comes from Scott and Ross. Scott has worked for DutchCrafters for about 7 years. He was our first product manager and now manages the product management team. Ross has worked for DutchCrafters for 4 years, first as a product manager and now as the manager of our business finance team. Here's their story, full of humor, peril, and ice cream.
Yeah, so the last trip that I went on up to Amish country was in August of 2017. I went up there with Scott, who's also joining me, as well as two other category managers at the time. We went up to Pennsylvania to a woodworking show where there were vendors from Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. They were all, but we spent a lot of time with one of our top poly furniture vendors at the show, and then also he took us out to dinner one evening at Longhorn with one of his many sons. It was fun to get that time with him and his son. But then after that, I think he rode back. He took us over to his house, which I've never been. Have you been there before, Scott?
Yeah, it'd be the second time.
Okay.
This trip was the second time I was there.
Nice. So yeah, he showed us his barn. I think he had 2 horses in the barn.
And I spent some time with the horse on a personal level and started petting his head. And I think as I was doing that, the vendor said, "Be careful because he likes to kick." And I think the second that happened, that horse kicked the wall of that barn so hard that I'm still kind of somewhat traumatized by it. It was scary. It had its elements of danger.
Yeah, I just stood back and let you do your thing, and I think I just took pictures. So he ended up taking us on a buggy ride after that. And the buggy that we went on, it was like a open. It wasn't closed. I think 2 or 3 people could probably fit in the front, and then probably 4 to 6 people in the back. There were 2 benches, but it was all open.
Yeah, he had 2 buggies, and this one was referred to as the convertible. So he had one that was a closed top that they use in the winter, which is smaller. And this one was almost, I don't believe it ever had a top, and it was big, very large in the back, as I remember it.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember. Yeah, but I think we hopped on there. I think we probably spent a good 30, 45 minutes on the ride. But we were going up and down. They weren't like huge hills, but it was a little hilly in Pennsylvania. It was August, so I don't remember it being super hot, but it was cool enough. The sun was setting at night that it was really enjoyable. I remember there being a breeze. He got quite a bit of speed on it, if you remember that.
Going down the hills.
Corn and bean fields, as far as the eye could see. But it was really beautiful. But he told us he was taking us to get ice cream, and I kind of envisioned us like going and parking the buggy and then going in somewhere to get ice cream. But we rolled up to Lab Valley Farm, and there is a huge line of buggies waiting in a drive-thru line to get ice cream. So we went through a drive-thru to get ice cream. Never thought that I would have done that, but I can cross that off the bucket list. But it was a lot of fun. He treated us to ice cream, and then we rode back to the house. And then when we got back, he gave us a tour of the house, I think.
Yeah, we went, showed us all around the house. And I think his parents own the property, own a farm that's right next to his house.
For sure. And it was by the time we were getting back to the house, I think it was getting pretty dark.
It was dark.
Are there headlights on the buggy? I don't remember.
Yes. Yeah, there was a lamp, and then he also had blinkers to signal his turns as well.
Okay.
That was another thing that was really stuck out too. How quickly cars pass buggies is almost unreal to me. I remember that being a big highlight, is that you're very close to automobiles, that if they were to hit the buggy, it would be a really bad outcome. So anyone listening out there that drives next to buggies, just know that it's not pleasant when you drive by really quick. So word of caution.
Yeah, so that was my experience on my one and only buggy ride. Have you taken other buggy rides, Scott?
I've been on a couple, yeah, but all pretty similar kind of experience. The ice cream was different. The ice cream was special. It was a good ending to a good day with good ice cream. So
yeah, a lot of fun.
All in all, it's a good trip. We'll probably do it again. 10 out of 10. We'll do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you to Scott and Ross for the review of that trip. 10 out of 10. You heard it, TripAdvisor. I think what has stood out to me from the majority of these stories too is that like those special little moments that happen where we get invited into their home, or we get to go on a buggy ride and get to have ice cream or those cookies.
Definitely, those moments just make great memories from these trips. I cannot imagine, just doing a drive-through in a buggy.
Yeah. That definitely sounds like a unique and memorable experience.
It does. From their story, I'm also glad that Scott brought up about, driving in Amish country. It's so scenic and beautiful. And I have not been on a buggy ride myself, but so many people love to go there to see it and to shop and see Amish country. But it's so important to remember to be respectful and careful on those winding roads. I know Eric Wessner from AmishAmerica.com, he has, a good number of articles that he puts out, of, some tragic consequences, sadly, with cars coming through Amish country and buggies that are on the road. So I'm glad Scott mentioned that. It's important to remember when we're visiting.
Yeah, definitely important to remember. All right. So we hope that you've enjoyed these stories from Amish country. Before we say our goodbyes, Beth and I are going to share something we learned from these stories, or a favorite part of a story that was shared with us. I'll go ahead and go first. So I think there's like a few things that stood out to me and that most people mentioned, and that was those early morning, wake up hours that we've talked about a few times already. The hospitality, I think everybody just felt so welcome, and I remember feeling that way at the show too. It's like every booth we went to, I hadn't been working for the company for very long when I went to the show, and I'd maybe just talked to a few vendors, if any, and I mean, they were just all acting like they'd met me before, and they were just so happy that I was there. So yeah, those are the things, and I feel like, you hear that in every single story pretty much.
I agree. When I connect with some of these stories and I hear, descriptions of, the early morning and the sunrise and the pace of life, that's something that I really connect to. That really jumps out for me. I've always said, that I just want to live in Laura Ingalls' cabin for a while, or Anne of Green Gables, and run around there, in that life for a while. But I actually have a quote from the blog that I had quoted from before is called Traveling Amish Country. And this quote is from Ross, who just gave us that last story. And he said, "The pace of life is different in Amish communities. Large farms everywhere, acres of yard, and tons of cornfields. Amish country just has that quiet, family-oriented feel." And that's something that jumps out at me from these stories. And there's one other thing, is the woodworkers and the pride they put in their products. I think we hear that come through in a lot of the stories when people bringing back, different details like Carrie Joe did about, those bird feeders and that kind of thing. Just the attention to detail and all the effort that the woodworkers put into their products. It just makes me so proud of what we offer at DutchCrafters and what people find wherever they're shopping for Amish furniture.
I think for breakfast tomorrow, I'm going to make a burger and some fresh squeezed grapefruit juice. I feel inspired.
That sounds yummy.
Yes. The only thing that would make it better is that ginger molasses cookie recipe.
I know. One as big as your head.
All right. That's it for our second episode. Again, I'm Milca Rivera.
And I'm Beth Rice.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And thank you to those of you that have listened to episode 1, Misconceptions About Amish Furniture, and left a rating and or a review. We very much appreciate it.
Also, don't forget that we want to hear from you. What questions do you have about Amish furniture? Do you have a topic idea for a future episode, or do you have a story about a trip to Amish country that you would like to share with us? If you do, please email us at podcast@dutchcrafters.com.
The topic of our next episode is Insider Tips Shopping for Amish Furniture. Even if you're not in the market for Amish furniture, you may be able to use some of these tips to help spot good quality furniture, and we promise that we will make it lots of fun. So we look forward to your reviews, comments, and emails, and thank you so much for listening.